Let's explore the world of WordPress plugins for this session. I have my WordPress front end opened on one tab, and I have another tab open with the WordPress dashboard or the WordPress backend. To start out, I want to go down to plugins on the left-hand navigation and click on Add New. By going to plugins and Add New, this will show us the different methods in which we can install and search for plugins. Now, before we get much further, it's worth pointing out that plugins are all about adding functionality to our WordPress site. Most of the time, plugins add functionality for us, the web developer. I think a lot of times we kind of focus in on the fact that WordPress is going to add something for the end user. It's going to add some social media icon, or it's going to add something of that nature. But the truth is, plugins are all about adding tools for us on the back end so that we can then add more tools for the users. So with that being said, I want to spend a few moments kind of looking at some of the plugins built right into the WordPress system and what we can do here. First of all, you can search. You can upload if this is a plugin that you download from a different website. It's sort of like uploading your own theme. That'll come in a zip file if you download it from somewhere, but generally speaking, if you're going to download a plugin from a third-party website and not this WordPress dashboard, more than likely that's not going to be a free plugin. That's going to be something you pay for, and they'll provide the file for you, a zip file. The next few over, we have featured, popular, newest, and favorites. These are all going to be sort of online list. Featured, for example, if we click on that, should take us to a list overall that shows us a few of the new featured plugins that the folks at WordPress are now featuring. So the featured plugins really show us a lot of the plugins that are fairly new and really deemed as something that the folks at WordPress deem as important enough to show you under this area. Generally, when you're first learning about plugins, a great place to look is popular, because this is going to show you some really overall popular plugins. And one of the things that's great about WordPress plugins is that the ones that are built into WordPress here that are free to download, they have a rating system. And you can click on any of these titles, and you can see the ratings, and you can see the versions, and how long they've been out and what they're compatible with. So, for example, one very, very popular plugin, it's the third one down here, it's Contact Form 7. You can click Details on that, and one thing I always look for, first of all, are the ratings. I can see this has 4.5 stars based on 2,300 ratings almost, and it's been downloaded 18 million times. If something has 5 stars, but it's only got 3 ratings, that tells me that this hasn't really been around long enough for me to see if this is going to stick or not. When something's been downloaded 18 million times, and it's got a few thousand ratings, most of which are high, that's something that's probably going to be worth looking at. Contact Form 7, for example, this is a plugin. Obviously, it's been around for a good while. It's last updated 2 months ago. And it's compatible up to this version, 3.91, which is exactly what I want to see. This allows us to put contact forms on our website. We can have a basic email form, and it's something that's pretty difficult to do if you've never done it before by hand. It generally involves some sort of PHP and a bunch of form elements. This has some pretty standard stuff, but it gives you a lot of choices. So it's a great way to start. And with just about any of these plugins, it'll show you a little bit about installation. It'll show you screenshots of maybe what it looks like, an FAQ page, maybe even give you some installation instructions and just overall guidelines, and hopefully a link to the plugin homepage, which is nice to see when you've got maybe some tutorials there to go through as well. So Contact Form 7 is a great example of what a plugin might do. Now, if you go through this list here under Popular, you're going to see that there are a lot of them that are going to help with your SEO. All-in-one SEO pack, for example, is very popular, as is WordPress SEO by Yoast. I've used them for a long time and very, very happy with that plugin, the WordPress SEO by Yoast. Woocommerce is an extremely, extremely good shopping cart software. And shopping carts are not an easy thing to do. Generally speaking, if you're going to put a shopping cart on any website, there's going to be fees involved and usually a lot of money up front. But WooCommerce is a free plugin that allows you to put shopping carts right into your site. It doesn't allow you to do everything that a shopping cart does as far as like accepting credit cards. You'll have to go through another gateway for that, but there are gateways that work with WooCommerce. I've used this quite a bit personally, and I can certainly vouch for them as a great shopping cart product. We've got things like email newsletters, security things. We've got something that makes your site look more like a mobile site or a responsive site. Discuss comment system. If you don't want to use the typical comments, there's other ways to do that. Sliders, analytics. If you can imagine something technical for WordPress to do, there's probably a plugin for it. Lots of social media icons also. So one of the best ways to get familiar with some of these WordPress plugins is to kind of glance through some of the featured. It's also kind of fun to look at newest. Although with newest, you're probably not going to see the high ratings you're typically going to find on the popular or featured. So newest just kind of gives you some nice little ways to familiarize yourself with plugins. But there's just so many. There's thousands of these things, thousands of plugins that can increase the functionality of your site. Many times the plugins will add new menus over here in your dashboard. Sometimes they'll add widgets to your widget editor over in Appearance and Widgets. So, there's not like one set list of what WordPress plugins are always going to do, but they certainly, there's so many of them that they add the functionality, and it's very trial and error. I'm going to go look at some of the plugins I've already got installed. And depending on what server you're using, you may have a few of these installed also. But one that WordPress comes with is called Hello Dolly. And this plugin really doesn't do anything, but it just shows such an easy technical aspect that plugins can do. I'll go ahead and activate Hello Dolly. And now when I'm here anywhere in the back end, when I look up here, I see some random lyric to Hello Dolly. So does it really do anything for me? No, not really. But it just shows me that with a plugin like Hello Dolly, it can add things to my dashboard. And every time I go to a different page, I'll have a different lyric up here. Hello Dolly. Find an empty lap, fellas. There's all sorts of things we can do here. So that's one that typically WordPress comes with standard. I'll go ahead and deactivate that. It just shows as an example of what WordPress can do. Addthis social bookmarking is a very, very popular WordPress plugin that allows us to have sort of this share button that puts all sorts of things on our front end. I went ahead and activated that, and I'll just go back to the front end now and see if there's any visible difference. And I don't really see anything added to the front end of the site just yet. I'll go back to the dashboard, and I notice as I'm going down the list here, I don't really see anything that says add to this or share buttons. But a lot of times they'll be under settings. And when I go to settings, at the very bottom there's an add this share. But that's a link that I didn't have before I activated this particular plugin. So when I go to this, it shows me all the plugin options, and every plugin is going to be completely different, but it allows me to pick what sort of share button that I want, and it shows top sharing tool, bottom sharing tool, and different ways to do that there. So for example, I could go ahead and choose one of these, and I could do a little bit of reading here, and it looks like it says here that maybe this is going to be its own widget. So maybe I'll go to Appearance and Widgets, and look at that. Under Available Widgets, I now have an Addthis share. So this plugin is adding a widget. I'll go to my primary sidebar and go ahead and add that, and it shows again the different things that I can do here. I'll go ahead and choose this one, and we'll see if that's too wide for my particular layout. It is a little wide, but it does manage to fit everything there. So now I've got this Addthis share buttons, which is really cool. And I can change that at any time by coming back into my widgets and changing things. Now this generic share button, which I'll change and save here. This is a very popular button. It's not quite as eye-catching as having the social media icons, but if you hover over it, it does give you a lot of different choices. And I like this particular one because not only does it have the general Facebook, Twitter, stumble upon, and different things, but there's a More button with 291 methods to share. And even though that may seem like overkill, remember, the web is a global thing. What's popular today may not be popular tomorrow, and vice versa. And also, things may be popular in different countries, and the web is a global thing. So it's important to have some of these extra things there available. Again, not quite as eye-catching, but hey, we get lots and lots and lots of choices. So that's what something like an Addthis share button would do. I'll go back to plugins and installed plugins to take a look at another plugin or two. I'd mentioned Contact Form 7 is another phenomenal one. It's great to have installed. WordPress SEO by Yoast, also very, very, very good. So I want to real quickly go to Contact Form 7, and I'll activate that plugin. And it just says plugin activated right up here. I notice now that on my dashboard I've got a new button. I've got a contacts button here. So I can click on that and it'll kind of walk me through creating a brand new form. Well, there's already a contacts form there. It's got one built in. And the standard form that it comes with is your general email form. It's one that asks for your name, your email, a subject, a message with a send button. And that is my Form 1. Now, without knowing a lot about this, I could just kind of read through some of this, and it says copy this code and paste it into your post, page, or text widget content. And this is what's called a shortcode. Shortcodes are enclosed with square brackets, just like we see here at the beginning and end. And this is sort of WordPress's own language. Shortcodes are things that we can put into our code view of post pages, widget areas in some cases, and it'll replace that shortcode with some amount of content that shortcode represents. So in this case, I'm just going to copy that code, just the default it's here. I'll go ahead and hit save because I'm not going to do anything to change this form. And let's say that I'm going to go maybe add a page. So I can add a new page here, and I'll call this page Contact. And for the text, I'll simply click text. That lets me put in my shortcode, my code, and I can simply publish that. Now, in order for this to actually show up, I am going to have to make some sort of link to it, unless you set your menu to automatically show top-level pages. I'll go over to Appearance, Menus, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Contact and say Add to Menu. So it added my Contact button as the last one down here. And that's a good place for it. Go ahead and save that and go back to the front end and refresh. And right over here on the far right now, I have a new Contact button. When I click the Contact button, it takes me to the Contact page. How awesome is this? I now have a working email form right on my site. Someone can type their name, their email address, their subject, and the message, and the Contact Form 7 plugin takes care of the rest. How does it know what address to send it to, what email address? It's going to go to the admin email address that you've got in your settings. So if you're the administrator, your email address is the default. And that is so incredibly easy if you compare that to some other email form process, especially for static web pages. So Contact Form 7 is phenomenal. Now, is that all that Contact Form 7 can do? Of course not. There's many custom forms that you can create with form elements and many other things like drop-down menus and radio buttons and checkboxes. But you really have to start digging into your plugins to really see the full power of a lot of them. So hopefully this helps explain a little bit about plugins. And as much as I would love to sit and show you more and more about these, you're really going to have to sit, install them, and get lost. The last thought that I'll give you before signing off here is don't install a lot of plugins at one time. Sometimes plugins, since they are made by third-party vendors, they do sort of interfere with each other. They don't interact well with each other. So if you install 5 different plugins, and then you've got a problem on your site, you're not going to be sure which plugin did makes the problem. So, I try to install one plugin at a time, go check my site out, kind of click through my links, test out whatever that plugin's supposed to do, and make sure everything works. Then I'll go do a second plugin, and again, try everything out, see if it works, check my links, make sure everything's great. Because the bigger these plugins are, the more likely they are to interfere with other plugins. It's also possible that you start to bog your site down with lots and lots of plugins. Sometimes they can slow things down. So I'm not discouraging you from doing it, but it's sort of like when you're first learning filters in Photoshop. You want to go use every filter ever created just because they're so cool and they're so new. Plugins can kind of be that way. So try some out, play around with them. If you're not going to need them right this minute, deactivate them. Deactivating them means that they're still installed. They can be activated at any time. Any settings that you add to them are saved, but it just sort of stops them so they're not being executed right now, and maybe can speed your site up. So have some fun, experiment, try a lot of these out one at a time, but don't go crazy and have 50 plugins on your site. Hopefully this teaches you a little bit about plugins. Thanks a lot.